Hello and welcome to the Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. It's time to get fired up. Make sure you find the Raptor Show or listen to podcasts and subscribe. And please rate and review the program. I'm your host, William Lou. I'm joined by co-host Blake Murphy. This is actually programming note, our last, at least weekly or daily Raptor Show until next week, where the show will return post All-Star break next Thursday. But yeah, if you're going to be tuning in tomorrow or Friday and expecting me to talk about Chunky's new spicy soup, it's probably not going to happen.
Well, you got post game React Pod tonight still, right?
Well, you'll hear a lot about the soup then for sure. Absolutely.
Well, I more just mean about the Raptors also. Like people,
yes,
yeah. I mean, everyone's going to be cracking open the chunky soup during the slam dunk contest and things like that.
Absolutely.
I would personally dunk into a bowl of soup. That would be my move. Like, you know, the Stephen A. Smith meme of a guy dunked a pumpkin. And he's like, it's over. It's over. He dunked a pumpkin. That'd be me, but like dunking the ball in a big bowl of soup.
Yeah, I can't wait to put the cracker in the soup.
Yeah. Anyway, it's dunk contest weekend, and so all I can think about is that Stephen A. Smith meme of he dunked a pumpkin. It's over.
I gotta see that. I don't know why I've never seen that.
It's very dumb.
The way you're describing it, it's certainly selling like that.
It would be over if someone dunked a pumpkin and smashed it.
Absolutely. Honestly, if someone did that instead of dunking a basketball, I'd be pretty impressed. So we have three guests for you today. We got Jason Kapono. He's going to call in sometime in the first segment here, which for a lot of old Raptor fans will be a bit of a throwback moment. Obviously, a three-point champion. We'll talk to him about the three-point contest and just get his general thoughts around, his time back with the Raptors and maybe some advice for Grady Dick, potentially. I feel like Grady doesn't need it anymore. Grady's
okay. He's had 13 good games. I still think he could stand to hear what a guy has to say who led the league in three-point percentage twice.
Yeah, Jason Kapono famously led the league in three-point shooting percentage 2 years in a row, 51%, and then 48, I believe.
Although the 48%, which was his first year with the Raptors, he did not shoot enough to qualify, which I remember even young Blake would lose his mind.
You're like, just take a step back.
Why?
It's one more point.
Why are you running a double pin down to get him into a long two when the three-point line is right there? Maddening.
That's a good question. I think it was only more recently when the NBA collectively decided
that
and realized
3 was worth more than 2?
Yes, 50% more. Then segment 2, we're going to check in with Kalen Cooper, check in on Pascal Siakam and how he's fit with the Pacers. Obviously, Pascal comes back to town today for the first time since getting moved about a month back now. So we will welcome Pascal back and just check in on how the Pacers are doing in general. Obviously, we own their picks too, so there's an extra added incentive there. Then we got Marc Stein in segment 3. We're going to talk about, well, not so much trade rumors, but maybe even look ahead to what might happen in the offseason, because he dropped an interesting nugget, which was that Trae Young could be on San Antonio's wish list for the summer, which would be kind of incredible to see Trae Young throw lobs to Victor for like half a decade at least. So we'll see how realistic that is. And then finally, we'll circle back on Pascal and just talk about his return to Toronto. But first, as promised, we have Jason Kapono, former Raptor, two-time three-point shootout champion. Jason Kapono, how you doing, Jason?
What's up, guys? How you doing, man? I'm doing great.
We're very happy. We're very happy to have you. This being a Raptor show, obviously, we're going to reflect on your time with the Raptors, and maybe we'll start there. We were just talking about just now, but yeah, you still have the Raptors' three-point percentage in terms of highest percentage in the season, 48.3. Is that correct, Blake?
Yeah, it is correct. Minimum 9 attempts. There are the Nigel Hayes of the world who went 2 for 2.
That doesn't count.
So we got to filter them out. But yeah, Jason, your 48.3% stance.
It's a minimum 9 shots.
Yeah, that just
total for the whole season.
Yeah, that's just to make it look even more impressive. Like I think you got up like 130 or something that year. But yeah, I had to filter out the guys who were like 2 for 2 or 3 for 4. That's all.
So I'm thinking that you should probably filter out me here at some point, because the guys now like Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, I think they make like 120 per month. So therefore, I think you guys need to raise the bar.
We can do that, and like officially, I think your 3-point record with the Raptors isn't official because of the 3-point volume that they use now. But still, you shot 48.3 over an entire season, coming off a year in which you shot 51.4. Man, I guess my biggest question to you, looking back on that and hearing those numbers, is if you came along today, how many threes do you think teams would have you getting up instead of 1, 2, 3 a game?
Well, probably based on what I see, all the specialists now, like the McDermotts for San Antonio, like Klay Thompson, other guys who, don't play like a whole lot of minutes. If your role is in to come shoot threes, and now with like all the analytics and the data supporting that it's better to shoot more threes than it is to shoot long twos, I would hope that I could play my, normal 10, 12, 15 minutes a game and get up at least 10 threes.
Nice. I mean, Doug McDermott takes 4 threes a game in 14 minutes. So it's not that unrealistic that you could come in and fire off, not a 3 a minute, but a 3 every 2 minutes.
Yeah,
it's not
6, 7 threes.
Yeah,
easily.
I think that's fair.
No, because it's funny because I think in preparation for this interview, I was going back and watching some tape from 2008 on YouTube, which is like really grainy and it's like 480p. Not to make you feel old, Jason.
I do appreciate that, yeah.
I was watching the tape.
I'm 43, but yeah.
Yeah, I was watching the tape, and I was like, a lot of these, and then you guys are running floppy, or you guys coming off of like single doubles, everything like that, and it's just like, you're always in the mid range, and I'm just thinking, like, was there not that emphasis, like even like 10, 15 years ago now when you played, where it was like just take the extra step back for the extra point?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I mean, so that was your, what was that, 07 or 08?
07, 08, yeah.
So that was like 15, 16 years ago, and I can't even think teams that would average, I don't think there was any team in the league that would average 23s a game. So I think most teams kind of fell in like the 14 to 18 threes per game. So back then, it was more of a half-court game. It was more about, trying to get the ball to the rim, trying to shoot, closer to the, hoop. So I don't think anyone, and then as soon as Golden State started to win, then that trend severely shifted in favor of taking away those long twos and shoot threes. And then, as you can tell, even Greg Popovich, who was the king of pounding the post, give it to David Robinson and then Tim Duncan, and then just spotting up Bruce Bowen and Brent Berry, and Steve Kerr, and those guys. But, he would win championships probably averaging 94 points a game. And now, the Spurs have probably averaged like 118 points a game. So as soon as the Suns, Suns first with D'Antoni and Kerr was the GM, then it morphed into the Warriors with Steve Kerr, and then now it's all 32 teams.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of your year with the Raptors, for example, Stan Van with the 4 out around Dwight was a big one as well. Like Rashard Lewis is going to be a power forward now, and he's going to bomb threes. And Jameer Nelson's going to be, the first point guard who really has free reign to pull up, even though he's not like a star level scorer.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting too because there's that connection with Phoenix through Brian Colangelo, who brought you to Toronto as well. Can you talk to me about what you remember from A, signing with the Raptors, and also B, sort of Brian's vision for you coming to Toronto?
Yeah, it was a great time for me just because I was kind of bouncing around the league. So it was the first time that I got a long-term contract. And, it was funny that every time I visited there and played there on the road as a visitor, I always thought it was a great city and a great sports town. Even though I'm a California boy and I played my first year in Cleveland and I got to experience snow there. The only downside that I was somewhat scared to sign in Toronto was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to freeze my butt off. But thank God I figured out how to stay inside, and I also got to learn how to buy thicker coats. So it was a great time. Obviously the city, is a great sports town. It's a hockey town, but it started to change to a basketball town because I got there, I think the year before, that was when Sam Mitchell won the Coach of the Year. Yep. And then they beat the Nets, I'm pretty sure, in the playoffs.
Well, they lost to the Nets. They played the Nets in the playoffs, but they lost.
Gotcha. Okay,
Vince had to do them with the.
It was like the first time in the playoffs, probably since Vince and them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it was against Vince. Ugh.
Yes. Oh, yeah, correct. So, yeah, it was an exciting time. All of us are young. It was a great foreign flair to have on the team. We had Bargnani, Garbajosa, Calderon was there. I think Rasho was there, Nesterovic. Trying to think who else was there.
Delfino.
So, yeah, Carlos was there. You're right. And the following year was like Roko Ukic, and so it was a great mix of players. A bunch of hungry young guys who came to practice every day.
We might have lost them. We can still see. Oh, here we
go. Okay, I think the connectivity was just cutting out just a little bit, but he's reminiscing, and yeah, we really did have a lot of Europeans on the team at that time.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of ahead of the curve, right? Like the Calderon signing, the Anthony Parker, not European, but bringing Anthony Parker back from Europe after he'd gone there after not clicking in the NBA initially. It was kind of ahead of the curve. So we have Jason back. So Jason, before you came to the Raptors, you had a pretty eventful first couple seasons. Like you came in at the same time LeBron was a rookie with the Cavs, and then you won a ring with Shaq and D Wade. I guess let's start with the LeBron one. Do you have any memories of what it was like? Obviously, you guys were in very different situations, but coming in at the same time as LeBron, and what the vibe was around the Cavs at that point.
So the best part of my career was the players who I played with, not what I played or how I played throughout my career. That's what I tell my kids. And LeBron, he was just like an unbelievable talent, and just all the fanfare and all the hoopla that surrounded the Cavs, that year, like in 03, 04 was crazy. Every time we traveled, it was hordes of people waiting outside, waiting for the team bus to get there. I mean, it was madness and chaos anytime we, went out to dinner as a team. So it was pretty cool to see that and witness that, but then also see how he was able to, block that stuff out and focus on his game, continually work hard. He would show up early, stay late. And, I can't imagine playing with that type of pressure as an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah. All right. What about going to Miami? And you got a young Dwayne Wade. You guys won the championship. It was awesome. But of course, everyone talks about Shaq, and everyone who's played with Shaq has like a lot of Shaq stories. So, what was it like having Shaq in your locker room?
Shaq's the funniest guy alive. He's the most caring, childish, grown man that I've ever, spent time with. There's probably more stories that we can't share on the talk show, but some of the stories you can share was how he swore that he was a policeman. Right, he was whatever. He got the key, or the police chief granted him. He was, he was honorary captain. But Shaq didn't know anything about police department rules. He had no type of, understanding or grasp of what the policemen do. So we thought it was funny that he was out there and he was a civic policeman, but he didn't really know what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, Shaq always had a lot of like side quests. A lot of side quests.
Yeah. Rapper, actor, policeman. Yeah. I think the police thing, in retrospect, he was just trying to like police are cousins of the referees. He was just trying to get more free throws and just be like, hey, I'm with you. I'm a cop off the court. You're a cop on the court.
I don't think that Heat team had issue getting free throws. Don't worry.
Definitely not.
Shaq did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shaq would get hacked all the time, and then he wouldn't get any love.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he ever came to you for any tips or pointers about shooting the free throws.
He can't shoot free throws, dude, because his hands are so big. So it would be like us three trying to shoot a golf ball. It's physically challenging to shoot such a small ball when you have such huge hands, right? Because it sits in the palm of your hand,
right?
And you can't really get your fingertips on it. So free throws all touch, and unfortunately, Shaq was born with huge hands. So I think he did all right, though.
I think he did all right, man. What?
Yeah, I think it panned out for him.
Yeah. So what you're telling us, though, is this weekend in the 3-point contest, because we want to ask you about your 2 3-point contest victories. Don't bet on the bigs. Karl-Anthony Towns, the hands are too big. That's what we're that's where we're looking for the little advantages here.
I would say so. I don't think. Yeah, I just think it's harder to shoot as a big guy. Like the bigger your hands are, then there's less fingertips on the ball. And I think Cat had a 52-point game a couple weeks ago, or a 62-point game, but I think I would stick with the tried and true formula of a shorter guard type who is more of a set shooter. I think that's tried and true.
All right. So take us through those 2 years or the 2 times you won. I know you went the third time as well to try to defend it for the three-peat. But the 2 years that you won it, just take me through maybe your emotions going into it and also, what it was like, because I think for you, you won those 2 pretty definitively.
Yeah, I don't really remember that well. I do remember the first one was in Las Vegas, which it was the first time there, I think, ever. So, like, that scene in that crowd was crazy. And then I think I was the most nervous because we followed the Charles Barkley Dick Bavetta full court race.
The kiss.
So that was extremely, extremely right because, like the people paid just to watch that race. And then it was a huge drop off and it was like, oh, and now we have the 3-point contest. And they're like, oh, I'm about to leave. Dick Bavetta just beat Charles Barkley in a full court race. So, that was the best part of the first one. And then the best part of the second one, that was in New Orleans. Man, there was a lot of good ones in there. That was like when Pedro Stojakovic was shooting in, Steve Nash, Rip Hamilton. But the best part about that one was I was the defending champion. We were going into the locker room to go get changed. I was walking right before Dirk to get in, and then the locker room security guard stopped me and said, "Excuse me, sir, where are you going?" And I was like, I'm going inside to change." And he's like, "For what?" And I said, "I'm changing because I'm shooting in the 3-point contest." And then he smirks at me, like dead serious. He's like, "So am I. Please move."
Wow.
So I had to stand outside and then wait for Dirk to come back. And Dirk tapped me out. I was like, "No, man, he's shooting in it." Well, if you fast forward an hour and 20 minutes later, I come back with the trophy. And the guy was like, "Dude, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that." I was like, "I get that all the time." Don't worry.
That's so that's hilarious. How much did you prep for these? Like how many times did you have like a staff or an assistant coach set the racks up for you and run through it? Or did you just go in kind of, hey, I'm a shooter, I'm going to warm up, but I'm not going to practice? Like how much, obviously it's different than in a game or your normal shoot around. How much did you work on the craft specifically of winning the 3-point contest?
I'd maybe do it like a week before.
Okay.
And my man there in Toronto, Kevin D. Pietro, is the equipment guy. I think he's still there.
All around.
Shout out to Kev. Kev just get some racks ready, and then I would say after practice. So maybe for, I don't know, anytime after practice, a couple days prior to it, just try to get the timing down. And really, it's just trying to get it off 25 shots in 60 seconds. It's a lot quicker pace than what people think. If you don't really have time to like kind of shoot, follow through, kind of see if you're missing long, short, right or left, it's kind of just shoot and then go back to the ball. And also too, you have a bunch of lights coming on. You got all the referees, cords, cameras, drones nowadays and stuff. So it's not the same, but it definitely helps to practice.
Okay, so you win the 2, and in the second one, at what point, if at all, did you realize you were closing in on what at that point was the 3-point contest record?
I had no clue. I was just trying to get up. Well, yeah. Focus one is to just get all 25 shots up. Like you definitely don't want to leave any unused points, out there just because you're taking your time. Which, if you kind of watch it, a lot of good shooters, if they start out slow, then they start to slow themselves down and then take their time. And then as soon as they catch or get back on track, then they have to rush that last rack. And especially now, right? It changed to where all the bonus balls now, or like there's 5 of them, and you can put the whole rack at the very end. So you're leaving possibly 10 points like on the board if you have to rush through those.
So so there are extra points that you can get now. You got 25 points out of a possible 30. Your record has technically been broken. Steph broke it, and I think Karl Anthony Towns actually has the highest now. But those guys had extra money balls that you didn't have. How do you feel about that? Like, do you still feel like you hold the record for the 3-point contest?
Yes, so they should host like a 40 and over 3-point contest.
I would love to see that.
And so go like dad bod, 40 years and older versus all of like the young dudes. But I think now, right, isn't it 4 racks with it's 4 1-point balls and a money ball and then a full rack?
Yeah.
And the Mountain Dew ball.
That's 9? So that's 9 times 2 is 18, and then you got 16-1. So that's what, 34 points total?
And then there's also like a special. There's the special
The 3-point ball.
The
green one.
The
that they use
Mountain
now.
Dew or whatever the sponsor is this year.
It's like you shoot from 30 essentially.
Oh, Starry is what it is.
Yeah.
That brand of soda.
Yeah, Starry, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I made, 21 out of 25 shots? And then I think I read, didn't Sabrina, didn't she make like 27 out of 30 or something?
It was something ridiculous.
Yeah. So now we'll see her and Steph head to head this weekend.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure on Steph, right?
Yeah, it certainly
she's
is.
coming off she's coming off her commanding win last year, set the record there, and then I guess she kind of called him out, kind of challenged him, and then that's what kind of created this thing. So I think I might have to go Sabrina.
All right. Good.
I think
it'll be really exciting. I remember watching it last year. I think she made like 26 in a row.
Ridiculous.
It's absurd.
She was on fire.
Yeah.
I mean, that girl, and look, like a shorter guard who is a set shooter.
There you go.
Right? An efficient, just smooth stroke. And she doesn't really jump that much. So, tried and true formula.
There you go. Well, it'll be a good contest. I guess the last thing we wanted to get you out on, maybe actually two things. I think one, at least for your era of the Raptors, you got a Sam Mitchell story for us? You got something from what was like to get coached by Sam? Because we know Sam is a very colorful personality for sure.
Oh, he's extremely funny. Yeah, he would love to just trash talk you nonstop, right? And
as
he
your
would
coach,
always,
though?
compare his era versus our era, right? And we all would always tease him and tell him, like, the only reason why he had a role or he played was because he was best friends with KG. So he was the coattailing. He was the coattailing starter or player or performer of the T-Wolves because he coattailed a superstar.
That's pretty good. I'm sure he gave it back to you guys, though. That's because I feel like in this era, you definitely don't have coaches. Yeah, this era coaches definitely don't trash talk the players. You know, it's not like
you
that.
You can't now, right? Because they all make $60 million a year. So it's like, oh man, well, I think the salary cap is what, 140 or 150, and most coaches are kind of, outside of Spoelstra and Popovich. Yeah. I think they're all single-digit earners.
Yeah. And then last question.
I got a weird one for you.
Oh, okay. You got a weird one.
And I hope this is all right. So over time, there has been a quote that is attributed to you that has made the rounds, and I think Bill Simmons had it first, and there are other people that have brought it up, but I have never actually been able to find a source where you said it. And the quote is, if you had like come through Croatia instead of UCLA and your last name was Kaponovic, you would have been a first-round pick. So I got to ask, did you actually say that, or is this one of those like telephone things where it just got attributed to you over time?
Yes, I did say that, and I never caught the most shit until I signed in Toronto, because guess who played in Toronto? There was guys from Croatia and Slovenia, and so all the Europeans. So I got what I asked for. So I had to explain myself. I was like, no, hey, I was mad, I was angry, I wanted to be a first round pick, and I don't know, I just said it.
Look, I think, you went 31st overall anyway. It's like, it's not like you were that far off, but this is one, like, it's been on message boards. It's been like, I think Bill Simmons had it at one point, but I have never been able to find a clip or a quote of you actually saying it. So I wanted to know, because like, it is a very funny quote.
Well, it's 1,000% true. And I think I said it to a guy, maybe kind of during like the draft process or post draft or at Summer League, but that was a year, if y'all remember, it was like back-to-back years. I forget who the draft. I think there was a kid that went to Denver, but there was a few guys who, they were touted who didn't really play at their club team back home, and then all of a sudden they go to a workout, but they don't want to take part in the one-on-ones and two-on-twos and three-on-threes. They just go in there, like in an individual by themselves, and they make shots and they dunk, and then teams take them top 5. And I'm like, well, that's kind of, you don't really play basketball 5-on-5, and how does a guy in college who's proven that he can play against top talent and succeed and do well, and then you go to a workout and you play against those same players, or guys who want to play you one-on-one, two-on-two, and then you prove yourself there. So I was just an angry, frustrated college kid who was 22.
Well, you lasted much longer in the league than Zoran Planinic, so who went in the 20s that year. So I don't know if that's the guy who was front of mind for you, but he went in the 20s, and you got a pretty good career.
I think it was Skidic Zili.
Okay.
Skidic Zili was the guy. He wasn't from Croatia, but yeah, he was like the number
5 pick.
Now he was like the 5th pick, I think 4th or 5th pick to Denver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah,
it's okay. They got it right years later with Jokic. So,
but in the second round, not even in the first round, they overcorrected.
They nailed it with that guy, right? Man, they absolutely dominated that.
There you go, Jason. We appreciate you calling in, man. This is a great to catch up and just talk about your time with the Raptors, and we're looking forward to the 3-point contest as well. But appreciate you taking the time, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Enjoy the 3-point contest.
Absolutely,
Jason Kapono.
All right.
Blast from the past, man.
So, okay, I gotta immediately go into, because obviously I clocked this right away and I didn't want to do it with him necessarily, but the 40 and over 3-point contest that he's talking about.
Yeah. I'm 100% down. Adam Silver, buddy. Let's catch that check immediately.
So Jason Kapono obviously has incredible career 3-point shooting numbers, but Del Curry, can he still shoot, or is he too old at this point for this one?
I would love to see like Steve Kerr be in this too.
Okay.
Because
we've seen clips of Steve Kerr doing that at practice, right? Like pre back injury stuff.
Okay, so the thing I would say for this is we got to give the 40 and over crowd an extra like 20 seconds.
Okay, you got to change the time for sure.
Yeah, you can't give them 60 seconds to get the shots up. Like
you
their legs
have
are
to
gonna
give
cramp.
them 60 seconds between racks. Like they got those the like waistbands to heat the lower back going and stuff. But like Dell's 59, so that's maybe a little on the older end for this event now. But he's a 40% career 3-point shooter, and he still looks like he's in good shape.
All right, so Kapono, Jason came up with the idea, so let's put Jason in this, okay?
Oh, he's in there regardless. He's a 2-time champ.
Del Curry's got to go in there.
Yeah.
I want to see Steve Kerr go in there just because I want something to represent the coaches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it would be kind of fun to see NBA players compete against their coaches. Who else do you want to put in this? Honestly, LeBron, by the time next year, he will be 40.
The only active player. I mean, this feels like cheating because he's just over 40 and was in the league not that long ago, but Kyle Korver's maybe winning this thing.
Ooh, Kyle Korver would be pretty good too. Yeah.
You know who? He won't do it, and he'll be mad that I threw it out there, but I want to see Alvin Williams in it. I know he didn't shoot a ton of threes in his career, but he's the type of guy that I bet if he came around now, he would be a guy who had free reign to extend that range out, and he always had a nice mid-range jumper. I wonder how he's doing it.
All right.
I just want a Toronto. I want a Toronto presence in there, and I don't think Del Curry's going to rep Toronto.
We got Jason as well.
He's probably repping Miami. He won a ring there.
Yeah, you're right. Well, that's a good idea though. I actually would love to see that.
Actually,
because that's what we used to have with like the higher shooting challenge, right? They used to bring on like a former great,
an old head.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm changing my Raptors pick.
Okay.
Sorry, Alvin. Alvin would say no anyway and be like, Blake, what are you talking about?
Analytics.
I'm not shooting threes.
All right.
Jose Calderon. If you change the time, like if you give him the extra time.
One though, he never did.
I know, but and he had a slower release, so that was part. But he shot 46% 1 year on threes.
Yeah.
In addition to like never missing a free throw for his entire career.
I think Colangelo actually did have an idea of like we want to play differently. Like that was his version of Vision 6.
They wanted to be this year's Pacers.
They were like passport. Like they were. I was gonna say something totally different, but
you were going with the international style. I was going with everyone's really good at offense.
Well, I mean, those teams were really good at offense, but they were also like the worst team in the league in defense.
Yeah. So. Except for the one year that Sam Mitchell won Coach of the Year, they were like They were 10th in offense and 12th in defense. And then even the next year, they finished 500 and they were 9th in offense and 13th in defense.
Well, we kind of had the formula to a certain degree because we had stretch bigs.
Yeah.
Right. Like Chris Bosh was a stretch big.
Bargnani obviously
was a stretch big.
And you still had Rasho inside. So you could do the kind of stretch big next to a traditional guy for like 20 minutes of those games.
But again, they were the worst defensive team, especially under Jay Triano. They were like literally the worst defenses in the league.
Yeah. They had 5 guys in the rotation shooting better than 38% on threes.
Yeah. And I really do think it was because of the success they had in Phoenix. Like they wanted to bring some of that over here. So,
but it didn't work. I don't know. Fun years though, and like very interesting to look back on now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, expectations are really low. So like when they won 47 games in 06-07, 47 games is like probably the least amount of games you can win and win Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
But it was like Chris Bosh made the All-Star team, I think for the second year in a row. They won the division, which honestly, at that time, even it was like, okay, this is really cool. The Raptors got to the point where they won the Atlantic many times, and now we literally don't have a single win against Atlantic opponents this season. So maybe we
Yeah.
did take it for granted.
Yikes.
But yeah, those are really fun, man.
All right. Let's
TJ
take a break.
Ford, Jose Calderon.
Yeah. So those teams were
Pete.
trying to be more international, but we're trying to be offense first and offense second. And who cares about defense? A natural pivot to this matchup with the Indiana Pacers.
Very good, very good. So we're going to take this break. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to the Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. When we come back, let's talk about Pascal Siakam and the Pacers. Welcome back to the Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Lou. I'm joined by co-host Blake Murphy. Blake, you got a cool shirt there.
I do. This is a hot girl basketball T-shirt. I also got the Pretty Girls Can Guard too. So Caitlin Cooper, our next guest, creator of Basketball She Wrote, took the Rick Carlisle quote of, yeah, you get tired of a pretty girl if she can't guard. Well, pretty girls can guard too. Caitlin, what's up?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the wonderful shirt.
I'm wearing the other one too.
There you go. I'm glad I chose the one that I did then. That would have been not awkward because we would have had to go like this for anyone to know we matched, but a little awkward. Look, All-Stars in your hood this weekend. How you feeling?
I'm excited. I mean, it's always good for All-Star Weekend because it actually falls over my birthday, and my sister's birthday. So it's kind of something that I always did as a kid growing up. So for it to be in Indiana is going to be really special for me to share that with her, and I'm looking forward to seeing everything going on. So especially with Tyrese Halliburton as a starter, so all works out.
Happy early birthday to you and your sister.
Oh, thank you.
Are you going to the actual weekend itself, like the festivities and everything like that?
Yeah, I'm going to Saturday night. That was a different thing because they're going to be doing that at Lucas Oil, so they actually opened that up to Indiana residents. So nice that a lot of locals are going to be able to go to that one, but I'm not going to the actual All-Star game. That one was a little bit out of my price range.
Yeah, that part's fine. But if you want to bring your sister, you can't do the media pass thing. I want to run one thing by you, and I think you're too nice to actually do it, but I feel like in spirit you would dig it. So there's this court set up at the airport when you arrive right now. I feel like there should be, and I've maintained that there should be like All-Star Saturday night events that are not specifically related to your basketball skill. What I want to see is I want like fans to be able to hoop on that court, but there's like a player haters ball going on of like players commentating as fans play on that giant spacious airport court. I think that could be, well, not fun. It would be really mean, but it'd be funny.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that they had erected that at the airport, I was like, are we cool now? Like there's an actual basketball court at the Indiana airport, which I mean, we do have a great airport, but now it's just all the much better.
Yeah, now we just need the reasons to get to the airport, which is All-Star Weekend. Also, potentially in the playoffs to see the Indiana Pacers. Let's pivot to the Pacers' actual basketball team. Last time we had you on, we were talking about, hey, the Pacers acquired Pascal Siakam. That's cool. What is that going to look like? Tyrese Halliburton missed a bunch of the first games. He has looked less than 100% in the last handful here since he's been back. But those caveats aside, how is this working out so far? How does the Pascal Siakam fit look?
Yeah, I think that the one thing that stood out the most, and I won't go into the actual like nitty gritty X's and O's machinations of it, but when they played, it would have been, I think, his second or third game when they were in Phoenix. They were running a sideline out of bounds play, and he was the inbound passer, and you could tell that he didn't know what the play was. Like Andrew Nemhard was having to communicate to him, like, hey, you're going to run across, then we're going to do this. I think that Obi Toppin ended up scoring on that play. I don't exactly remember, but Pascal had 31 points in that game, and he didn't know the plays. Like you could tell that they hadn't even had a practice with him. They had to input all of their offense, and that's just how organically he's able to find his spots within what the Pacers are doing. So I think offensively, it's been better than I expected because even with Tyrese being out, he was seeing a lot of extra coverage in a couple games, especially against Denver, maybe one or two other teams that were really showing him some double coverage because they didn't have as much shooting out on the floor. But he's able to come to his points, like I said, just really organically where he can come up and set a touch screen. If they get a mismatch, he's going to go into a bully drive. He fits right into what they want to do in transition because he puts in so much early work. I made a joke and said, like the early bully gets the ball, that he's going to get down there, set a seal, and they're going to be able to give it to him. So a lot of what they're hoping to do on that end of the floor, I think, has been pretty seamless. And there's probably one or two moments every game where I'm like, wow, I get to watch this guy play basketball, especially because like the pairing with he and Miles Turner, I don't think Miles has ever had somebody with Pascal's skill set in terms of it's been pretty easy over his career that whoever's out there in the front court with him, typically they'll cross match the 5 onto that player and guard Miles with the smaller player. Miles has grown as a post-up threat, but that's still what a lot of teams will do. And when the Pacers played the Sixers with Pascal, they did that. They put Embiid on Pascal, and Pascal was like, oh, you know what? I can snatch back and I can get around the edge of the defense and finish at the rim with my left. And by halftime, they had flipped that matchup around. So now Embiid's on Miles, and Pascal's like, oh, I'll just drive at Embiid. You're going to help on my drive. And now Miles is shooting a 3. So in terms of Miles being somebody who actually gets to be a 5, who's defended by 5, same thing with Kristaps Porzingis. You can see a lot of times where Pascal's, start, stop, making Porzingis have to chop his feet in space, and then they didn't want to have that matchup anymore either. So a lot of things like that where he can be very versatile offensively and plugged into plays in a lot of different ways. Defensively, I think it's a little bit more of a mixed bag.
Okay, we'll talk about the defense in a second. But yeah, offensively, I mean, that's for Pascal. He's always wanted to play with, a stretch 5. And I think that, he asked for Miles Turner in particular. If Miles would come to Toronto, well, he got his wish. At least he got Miles Turner. It's just now in Indiana. But, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers right now. He's shooting 62% from 2, Pascal is, since going to the Pacers. He's shooting 42% from 3, which is always a nice sign for him. Free throws are a little bit more inconsistent for him. I'm wondering, I guess you haven't seen it as much because, we haven't seen, like, the best of Tyrese Halliburton on the court just yet since the injury. But how are is there, like, a sign of a two-man game forming between him and Pascal? Like, how are their two ecosystems, like, overlapping?
Yeah, to this point, they've still played, I think, less than 200 minutes together.
Okay.
And in part, like, even in one of the games they did play, and I would compare it to, like, a Mr. Potato Head with, like, the arm in the eye socket and the eye stuck to the foot, because the Pacers were trying to rearrange what Tyrese's minutes restriction was going to be. So Tyrese actually came off to the bench so that they could play him in the fourth quarter, and the lineups were just all over the place. So there's been a lot of, rotational stuff that has made it so that they haven't played a ton yet together. But that being said, it's interesting because they kind of just exist in separate spheres to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's not been a lot of Siakam inverse pick and roll. Like, I think Tyrese has only set 4 screens for him so far. And in part, that's because Tyrese isn't a super physical screener. And then on the flip side of that, Pascal's set, I think, around 40, 45 picks for Tyrese, but they don't go to it a ton because, like, even the other night in Charlotte, like, Pascal's being guarded by Miles Bridges. If he goes and sets a screen for Tyrese, that's just getting him a screen against, a tougher wing defender, rather than if you have Miles set it, then maybe he gets a switch against a big, or, you're going to hunt the weakest defender somewhere else. Pascal's usually being guarded by one of the toughest people. So it's a little bit harder to run just specific 2-man game actions for them unless, like I said, it's like a quick touch screen coming out of the corner so that Pascal can get Tyrese's guy and maybe go into a post up. And I think that's probably where you see their chemistry a little bit more. Like, if Pascal's in the post and then you can have Tyrese run a split action above that, that's great because Tyrese's defender is not going to sag off of Tyrese and go double Pascal. Like, typically that defender, like, if you set a flare for Tyrese off of a post entry pass, that defender is going to go with Tyrese, and now it's just an easy isolation for Pascal. Or sometimes they'll do like a quick slot to slot flip at the top of the key, and then a screen isn't being involved, and that lets a Pascal get downhill with his strong hand. But that's kind of, it's going to be interesting to watch because Buddy Hield could have acted as a bridge between the two of them, I think, because Buddy's a better screener than Tyrese. Buddy can set inverse screens, be a stack screener potentially for Pascal, and Buddy can also screen for Tyrese and be a ghost screener. So in terms of that connective tissue between them, I think they're going to miss that a little bit.
So I want to come back to the Buddy Hield trade in a minute because I have some thoughts on it, and I wonder if your thoughts line up with that. But on the Pascal front, on the defensive side, so I watched the first couple games as much as I could when he got there, and it looked like he was being given, this was when Halliburton was out and Buddy Hield was still there. He was being given the main assignment, guarding KD some in the Suns game, and at least one-on-one, he looked like we saw in Toronto, which was, it wasn't the level it had been a couple years ago, but he wasn't bad. And then you sent me a couple clips yesterday, and then I started watching some more recent Pacers defensive tape last night because most of the interesting games ended up being blowouts around the NBA. And it looks less good, at least in like screen navigation and help principles and stuff like that. And I guess given what we've seen from Bruce Brown in here in Toronto so far, like, is the theory here that just Indiana is where defense goes to die?
I'll be interested to find out. I want to see more of Bruce tonight and see what he's looking like for the Toronto Raptors because, yeah, what you brought up there against Phoenix, I think that's a good way to put it because you could tell earlier on that they're really experimenting with exactly how they wanted to use Pascal. So in that game, they had him start out against Devin Booker. I wasn't super fond about that matchup, and I don't think they were either. So they flipped it around. He was doing some on Grayson Allen, and they were kind of seeing if he could be a backline sweeper until they eventually were just like, let's not overthink this. Let's go ahead and put him on Kevin Durant. And I was impressed in those few games, especially a few where they didn't play with Miles because they needed to go smaller and had Pascal at the 5. And there were some possessions that I clipped from them. Like, wow, this guy's rotating like really quickly. The small ball lineup was effective for them. And then, like you said, over these last few, it's tough to exactly pinpoint what's going on there. Because against Houston, they had him playing off ball. He was kind of in a no man's land where he wasn't really helping, and he wasn't really covering the shooter either. And then in Charlotte, there was a lot of slippage there. That's a bad loss for the Pacers to give the Charlotte Hornets their 12th win of the season, regardless of the fact that the Hornets added some shooting. Just a lot of screen navigation issues where he's not getting over the top, or he's just running into contact on flare screens and pin downs. Then also like closing really hard to Miles Bridges' left hand and not being able to recover when Bridges would attack with his right, which, I mean, Bridges is a left-handed player, but still not being able to get back in front. When the Hornets went 5 out and played small to close that game over the last 6.5 minutes, they couldn't stay in front. Also, like a lot of 4-5 actions between he and Miles where like the switch or stay communication wasn't there. Rollers were getting loose. So the Pacers are going to need him to step it up defensively. I think they probably need to make some adjustments too, because like if you look at guys like Giannis, if you look at Evan Mobley, they're not great screen navigators either. There's a reason why Giannis gets played off ball and gets used more as a roamer, and that's where he excels, because it's very easy to screen bigger guys out of action. So I think that the Pacers probably need to be a little bit more active with him just being used as a switch defender. Don't be putting him on movement shooters like Davis Bertans, where he's going to have to navigate those types of screening situations either. And probably they just need to keep tinkering it. And hopefully after the All-Star break, and I'm also hopeful tonight that maybe being back in Toronto will spark some more of what we saw in like the first, 5 or 6 games of what Pascal was showing defensively, because they need him to turn it up on that end of the floor. Just being honest on that front.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did see a little bit of that in Toronto as well. Like, I think to start this season, I thought he was okay, but as the season went on, it was like his defense was dropping off more and more. And I think that, I don't know, there were lots of moments where Pascal like stands out defensively. Like the Raptors used to always put him on quicker point guards, for example. This is like way back in 2018 now, but like Raptors are playing Washington in the first round. They're like, okay, we need someone to guard John Wall for a while. How about you do a Pascal? And Pascal had the quick feet and the length. But I think the reputation, has started to come off and off a little bit more. And I think that, yeah, I do wonder how much of it is age related, how much of it is like contract year related. Like, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, I think Indiana was looking for a two-way player, and I think offensively, getting everything you would ever really want. But defensively, I think there needs to be more of a step there. But I mean, I don't know. Pascal's not the kind of guy to like be a stopper or carrier.
No, not a stopper, but
better than he is right now.
Yeah, some of the team level stuff. And honestly, I think, and again, Caitlin would have a better read on this, but like the actual one-on-one stuff has been better than the like, oh, I got to flow through a couple screens here, or I'm stuck between, helping and staying on my weak side guy. Okay, so the Buddy Hield trade that we can circle back to here. Caitlin, we didn't talk to you about it after the trade deadline. And for anyone who missed it, the Pacers sent out Buddy Hield to the Philadelphia 76ers for 3 seconds and Marcus Morris. They then attached one of those seconds to Marcus Morris to get Doug McDermott from San Antonio. So basically, Buddy Hield for Doug McDermott in a couple seconds. Why did they do this? Because the Pascal trade is a win-now trade. And yes, with the option to re-sign him in the offseason, and Buddy Hield's also a free agent. But, right now, this trade makes them worse at a time that they just made a win-now move.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel a little bit incongruent. I think it goes back to the business of basketball. I know that Jake Fisher reported it, and it's similar to what I've heard. I think that the Pacers gave him a pretty fair contract extension number to start the season, and it got reported at the time that Buddy wanted to test that and see if he could potentially get a better deal. And I think that the Pacers felt like it was pretty likely that they weren't going to retain him. So at the risk of, not losing him for nothing, that was the deal that they made. And I think they realized they still needed a movement shooter, hence why they went and got Doug McDermott. But Buddy and Doug McDermott are very different movement shooters. I have quite a bit of experience of watching Doug the last time that he was here. And Doug is more of the movement shooter who's going to play very well in two-man game with a guy like Sabonis, because he rise and fires out of handoffs. He comes off of screens. Buddy's more a movement shooter of, I'm going to sprint to the line in transition. I'm going to screen for Tyrese Halliburton and be a ghost screener and slip out into space and be very savvy with whether I'm going to actually hit and hold contact or I'm going to leak out. And then also just sliding up and down the 3-point line. And he and Tyrese has played with Buddy his whole career. They know each other like the back of their hands. So it's a loss. Like I said, the connective tissue that would have potentially been there. And I guess it should have been an early sign. I made a joke about this on a Knicks podcast last week, that the fact that Buddy had only set 8 screens for Pascal probably should have been my first clue that this partnership wasn't going to be super long, because Buddy was being guarded by Jalen Brunson at the end of that Knicks game that they lost in the fourth quarter. And they didn't even look at that. They didn't even look at inverted pick and roll to get Pascal downhill against Jalen. They were doing the reverse and having Pascal set screens for Andrew Nembhard, which was just putting, you guys are familiar with, Precious Achiuwa's switchy defense on the ball against Andrew Nembhard. So that's out there. And like, I do think it'll be an adjustment. Doug hasn't shot the ball super well yet. He's capable of making some of the shots that they're getting him. But I think it is, like you said, it's in the immediate, it's going to be a downgrade. And Buddy's already helping the Philadelphia 76ers, and they're ahead of the Pacers in the standings right now. So definitely going to be something to watch.
Will, you expecting Doug McDermott to do Doug McDermott against the Raptor things tonight?
Doug McDermott has been a certified Raptor killer. As a member of the Bulls, as a member of the Pacers, as a member of the Spurs.
Yeah.
Let's hope. That would be good for the Pacers. They need to go into the All-Star break with a win.
You don't understand. The Raptors also need this win, all right? Because I think narratively for the franchise, it'd be really good if Scottie took over and just like won this matchup, and it was like, this is why, the Raptors pivoted to this new direction. But I mean, putting that aside, I watch a lot of Pacers games as well, and the guy who keeps catching my eye is Aaron Nesmith. I don't know. I guess I haven't like mentally adjusted to the fact that he's like a scorer now, and in addition to the energy that he puts out on defense. But yeah, talk to me about his role in all of this, because he's kind of stepping up almost to me as like a number 3 behind these the top 2, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one person where for a lot of the season, it wasn't clear who would be in the closing lineup for the Pacers. You knew for the most part it would be Tyrese and Miles, but who are the other 3 people going to be? And in some regards, that was a good thing, because it's like they have a lot of adaptability, a lot of versatility in terms of who they could put out there, but also like, who else were you going to count on definitively in those situations? Now they have Pascal. He's going to be out there. And Aaron, I think, had solidified himself and kind of separated that, like, this is somebody we want out there for the reasons you just said. He's going to play at 100% no matter what. If it's a Monday night in Charlotte ahead of the All-Star break, Aaron Nesmith's still going to play really freaking hard, because that's just who he is as a player. And obviously he shot the ball a lot better this season as well. I think that they've adjusted with him a little bit as what he does as a hop step shooter, and that's helped him. And he's shown that he can do a little bit more off of movement. He's leaked out as a screener and hit some shots. He's slid along the 3-point line into passing windows and made some shots as well. So he's somebody that's definitely takes some steps forward for them. I think that in part, not completely, but I think his insertion into the starting lineup, because they had put Jalen Smith at the 4. They were playing bigger before they acquired Pascal. That Aaron being out there is also partially why Andrew Nembhard is starting, because there was a 2-game stretch where Aaron was guarding Jalen Brunson at the point of attack, and he fouled out. And then in the next game, he fouled out trying to guard the opposing point guard again. So he's somebody defensively that, like, he can be a foul machine. Like, he wants to play with contact.
Yeah.
He's going to pressure full court, so he picks up fouls. By putting Andrew Nembhard out there, now they can put Andrew Nembhard, who's pretty sticky at the point of attack, and take on some of those assignments. So maybe Aaron isn't getting into quite as much foul trouble.
Yeah. Well, Nembhard was one of the pieces I would have loved seeing come back to Toronto in that Pascal trade, especially because the Raptors could have needed more depth there. I don't know. I guess they have Quickly as the future starting point guard. I think Andrew probably wants to be a starting point guard in this league too.
Yeah, but he's starting now next to next to Tyrese Halliburton, and you could make that work.
Just real quickly. I mean, Andrew did say, I think today, and speaking to the local reporters here, that he would want to play for Team Canada if possible. So if he were to play for Team Canada, I guess what kind of role do you think Andrew would play?
Yeah, I really wanted Andrew to play for Team Canada last year and get to see him out there next to Shea or potentially Jamal Murray. It's interesting because I don't really like player comps, but Andrew does move somewhat similarly to Jamal Murray, especially when he's manipulating the pick and roll, because both of them like to use like a hop skip hesitation and a float dribble to square themselves to the basket, and he has kind of that same methodical approach as Jamal does. Andrew's pretty sticky at the point of attack. I mean, it's a low bar for the Pacers, but he's their best point of attack defender. He's somebody that they've thrown out there at the end of games against like Cade Cunningham. Cade had like 20 points at halftime, and Andrew really put the clamps on him in the fourth quarter of that game. They've done that with some other matchups this year, and also he's a pretty intuitive off-ball defender as well. He's somebody that he can come and tag a roller and still get out and intercept a skip pass because he has a good read. He has a good read for jump switching, peel switching, nexting, and knowing the spots that he can do that without compromising the defense. And then offensively, he hasn't been necessarily somebody who's going to create his own three-pointer off the dribble. He's only had 3, I think, unassisted threes this year. His shots kind of come and go on a little bit, and then also his handle. He's just dealt with so many injuries this year between the kidney stone, the
Right.
hyperextended knee, the back soreness, where there were some times where he had some stiffness, and I think that affected his handle to a little bit. But he's a very savvy passer. And if he was able to hit some more of those pull-up shots, I think people would see it even more, because
For
the
sure.
fact that he can get the degree of potential assists that he has, what their numbers are when he's passing out of the pick and roll, just imagine what that would be if like he was
Right.
hitting a few more of those shots. So I think he would definitely help Team Canada. I hope that he plays with them this summer. That's going to be a team that I'll keep an eye on. I enjoyed watching him last summer, especially, I don't know what Benedict Matherin's plans are. I think Canada wanted Andrew to play last year, and Andrew was somebody who I think wanted to take the year off to prepare for the season, but he's been outspoken that he wants to do it for the Olympics. So we'll see.
There you go. Okay, well, Caitlin, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll call you again the next time they're for the Pacers. So
anytime, that later this month.
There you go. Okay, we're going to take another break. I've been your host, Will Lou. You've been listening to The Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. When we come back, Marc Stein. Welcome back to The Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. It's your host, Will Lou, Blake Murphy. We have joining us once again, Marc Stein, who needs no introduction, really, especially the people who have been listening to this show all season. Marc Stein, what's going on, man?
Gents, I'm good. How you guys doing?
We're good. We're finally gonna stop asking about Bruce Brown. Maybe, I don't know. We might ask you one last question about Bruce Brown, but there's first off, I mean, is it a relief to you after the trade deadline is over? Like, are you like, oh, finally I can like relax, maybe just like watch basketball for a while and not like constantly take phone calls and all that kind of stuff? Like, I imagine it's a very busy time, I suppose, last week.
Look, it is super busy, but I think you could look at it two ways. I mean, when it first ends, are you relieved? Yeah, because it is, it is exhausting, and it's not just deadline day. It's literally, I think, from December 15th on, you're just constantly chasing. But yes, you get to now just actually laser in on some basketball, which is really hard to do for a lot of the season. But also it's nice to, I just think conversationally, when you talk to people around the league, like December 15th till the deadline, you're constantly on the hunt for info. And, that, even after I've been doing it all these years, like it's still not super comfortable to just constantly be besieging people to try to get info. So conversations, everybody I think is just a little bit more relaxed, and you just naturally talk about league stuff in a less, I don't know, full court pressy tone, I guess is what I'm trying to say here.
So, Marc, this is a bit inside basketball reporting, I guess, but it was back in the 2017-2018 season when the NBA first changed the timing of the trade deadline to be before the All-Star break, because there was, I mean, it had always been a thing where the All-Star break was like an unofficial GM's meetings and like reporter bonanza, and there was the DeMarcus Cousins moment where, if I'm remembering correctly, he got told he got traded during an All-Star scrum or something like that. How has that changed All-Star for you? Like, do you get to just enjoy All-Star weekend now?
Yes. Well, I would say this. I mean, if you really want to go inside our jobs, and part of it is, I mean, it comes, anytime we complain about anything, it sounds so whiny because we have the greatest jobs in the world. But, I do love All-Star Weekend, and I love Indianapolis. So, I'm really looking forward to going. And Indianapolis to me is, it's an ABA city. It's a market that's been around forever. So I'm super excited to go. But if I'm going to be ultra candid here, the media we are pushed farther and farther away. So it is, All-Star Weekend is not what it was. I mean, and now I'm going to sound like the old guy who, get off my lawn and everything. But All-Star Weekend really used to be a time where, on the Friday, it would just be a ballroom setting, and the stars of the league would come and really give you it was almost like a State of the Union when Kevin Garnett would be at a table or Kobe Bryant would be at a table. And, I think LeBron early in his career as well. And to the league's credit, they have tried to restore, because some of it is lost. Friday has just become absolute chaos at All-Star Weekend. There's too much going on, and the players don't have time for it. They have restored press conferences. They're now on Saturday, either before or after practice. But it's, to me, just not quite the same. Like Kevin Garnett especially, you would really look forward to the Friday of All-Star Weekend, and Kevin Garnett's going to sit at a table, and hundreds of reporters are going to, squeeze into this tiny little space to hang on every word he says. And just, it was always very newsy, and I really looked at them as like State of the Union addresses from the biggest stars in the league. And we just, we don't have as much of it. And again, maybe I think LeBron on Salt Lake City, I think LeBron actually did do that last year on the Sunday on game day. He actually came in late. They let him come in later, and he came in Sunday, but he did have a press conference. So it's not all gone, but it isn't what it once was, if I'm being totally honest with you guys.
Yeah. Think about the old days, Mark. the old days. And now they got podcasts and stuff like that. It's very easy for players to get their message out in a way that, in the past, I think they had to go through us in the media as a conduit. Now, game's changed, man. They make their own media. Draymond, goes out there and plays Phoenix and gets a game clinching stop, and then boom, he's on his own podcast calling out KD, calling out Yusuf Nurkic.
And his podcast is awesome, and some of the podcasts are great. Paul George's podcast is excellent.
Great one. Love that one.
JJ Redick just had Luka Doncic on, and they had a conversation that Luka was, their former teammates. Luka was open and light, and the interaction with JJ Redick is not going to be the same as it is just with reporters. But I would also say that I think when reporters are going to ask different questions than in a player-to-player podcast, and dare I say, as much as maybe the media is not always beloved, dare I say on occasion, we do ask some pretty good questions that lead to answers that the public wants to hear.
There you go. I love it.
Yeah, we do. Okay, so let's stay on Draymond, because there was a little bit of news this morning, and it's not unrelated to your latest report, which your latest Substack newsletter, which went into kind of the cloudy future of the Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron James holding a player option that it seems reasonable he would pick up, but until he picks it up, you don't really know. And then the Lakers having decided to not put assets in at the deadline in a move that you called absolutely the right call, holding those assets for the summer. Now, I pivot to the Lakers via Draymond Green, because there was reporting this morning from ESPN that the Warriors had made a pitch to trade for LeBron James and then Kevin Durant at the trade deadline. Before we get into the LeBron Lakers future, your read on that one, and how quickly do phone calls or I guess not even how quickly do they end, but how often are teams calling and this is fantasy league trade stuff, like, hey man, can I have LeBron? Can I have KD? How often does this stuff come up and it just doesn't come out, Mark?
I think it comes up. I think it happens. I think it happens a lot more than we realize. And in this case, the story got out to some degree. But yeah, I think teams, especially Daryl Morey, are going to be ambitious all the time. Do people call the Raptors and ask for Scotty Barnes, even though they know Toronto's not going to entertain it? I'm sure it happens more often than we realize. But honestly, with the Warriors, I'm more interested that it sounds like they made a pretty serious run at Alex Caruso, which would have been very interesting. Chicago ultimately decided to do what Chicago often does, which is nothing. So there was no Caruso trade. But look, we were told that all season long, that unless someone paid a very, very significant trade price, that the Bulls would not be parting with Alex Caruso. But the Bulls in the end didn't even trade Andre Drummond. But look, Golden State was aggressive. I think they really did explore all their trade options. But the reality is, a lot of that discussion was with Andrew Wiggins at the center of it, and I just don't think they were able to create any kind of market for Andrew Wiggins, because his past season and a half, it just doesn't line up with the contract he holds at this time. But I think what you can take away from it all is the Warriors are clearly being aggressive, and I wouldn't say that they're necessarily done. It's a franchise. It's a transitional period, and they're trying to figure out a lot of stuff while Stephen Curry, who turns 36 a month from today, is still playing at a ridiculously high level.
Yeah, and the Warriors, since Draymond came back from suspension, and you never know when the next suspension will be, if there is one. I'm not trying to get caught up in the podcast beast, but I mean, you just never know, man. But no, they've won 7 of 8 with Draymond back in the lineup now, and they've had some narrow losses before that as well. They really could be on an even hotter streak than they are right now, but they seem to be figuring things out a little bit more, which is good for the Warriors. On the Lakers side, I mean, okay, the LeBron Bronny kind of situation, you wrote about it just a little bit. Teams could be looking to pick up Bronny, for example, and maybe that brings LeBron as well. I mean, besides the reporting and stuff, does that make you feel a little bit weird? That to me just feels it feels uncomfortable for me. If the Raptors were to use one of their extra picks, which they do have a lot of extra ones, if they use one of the extra ones to get Bronny so that they can get LeBron, it just personally I'm like this. That feels a little strange as a combo deal. But yeah, what's the reporting around that, and also what's your feeling on it?
Time out.
Yeah,
You're telling me that on June 27th, in the new NBA draft, which will now be a 2-day affair,
yes.
Day two, and this is, I haven't even, just hypothetically speaking, the Raptors with the 49th pick select Bronny James. You would not be saying, oh my God, maybe LeBron would actually come here. I think you would be more into that than you're suggesting.
Okay, here's the thing. I just think that it's not entirely fair to Bronny. It's an uncomfortable situation. He's 6'4", he's a freshman. A lot of freshmen don't put up huge stats, but he's averaging 4.7 points per game right now. In less than 20 minutes per game. He's shooting 32% from the field. Unless his name was LeBron, if it wasn't LeBron's son, he wouldn't be drafted in this specific moment. They'd probably wait another year. And that's not to say he has no NBA future.
Let me underline the fact that we don't know yet if he's even going to declare for this draft.
That part too. You're right.
I have never met Bronny James. I do not cover the college game. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have a great handle on the second round of the 2024 draft because I don't. All I'm saying is if he decides to enter this draft, and I don't think that decision has been made yet, my instinct is he is going to get drafted. And I've heard enough NBA people say that no matter what the stats are, they do think he projects to be an NBA role player. Would it behoove him to play a second year of college ball? I imagine that's a decision that he's going to weigh. But what I reported the other day was, just to be clear, I know of 2 teams in the league. I'm not going to name them. If I would have been able to name them, I would have in that report. And maybe at some point I will be able to name them. But as of now, I'm not going to name them. But I'm just going to say I know of at least 2 teams that believe those teams believe. I want to underline that exact wording. But those teams believe that were they to draft Bronny James, that LeBron would consider coming there. And obviously he would have to be willing to take less money because, they're most likely not going to be cap space teams. I think we can say that much.
Sure.
So I do think it was absolutely the right call for the Lakers to keep their pick now because I just don't think any trade they could have made now was going to really change their ceiling for this season. And they do have to be ready for the possibility that LeBron would want to change teams in the offseason. I'm not saying that's the likely scenario. Mm-hmm. I think if you polled 30 front offices or if you polled the 29 other front offices, they would say the expectation is that LeBron is going back to the Lakers. He's got a $51.4 million player option for next season. He's not getting that kind of money anywhere else. Does he pick up the option? Does he opt out and sign a new deal? I think those are the likelier scenarios. But the Lakers do have to protect themselves. That what if Team X drafts Bronny on June 26th or June 27th, and what if LeBron wants to go there for whatever money that team would have in free agency? The Lakers would have to replace LeBron James, and that's a much easier task with 3 first-round picks in their cachet as opposed to 2.
That opens a whole can of worms, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
like his AD staying and all that other stuff.
And
yeah,
could the
wow.
logic just as easily be like let's say LeBron does stick around, but you get the read from LeBron that, hey, he's giving it one more kick at the can here, and then he's going to go play with Bronny or whatever. Is part of that thinking also to then maximize what could be, every year with LeBron, because of his contract structure, could be his last year with you. But now you're armed with 3 firsts, which gets you much more in the summer trade market than 1 first would have got you at this deadline.
Could even get you Trae Young, maybe.
Yeah, I think no matter what, whether LeBron stays with the Lakers or goes, as you just said, he's a lot closer to the finish line than he is to the beginning. So one way or another, the Lakers are going to have to replace him in the near future, whatever near means. And the way Anthony Davis has played this year, and more importantly, how durable Anthony Davis has been, if you're the Lakers, you have to start thinking about who is going to be the new sidekick for Anthony Davis. And that's why you hear the names Trae Young, Donovan Mitchell. Will there be another superstar level player who is theoretically available in the offseason? We don't know that yet. And to be honest, I think we need to make clear Donovan Mitchell has not been available. The Cavs have resolutely swatted away any inquiry for Donovan Mitchell to this point. But let's see what happens. Let's see where the Cavs are after the playoffs, and let's see where the Cavs are if Donovan Mitchell is not willing to sign a contract extension.
It will be really interesting. Well, I mean, the other possibility mentioned for Trae Young that you brought up was the San Antonio Spurs. And they definitely need to – we just saw Wemby in Toronto. Okay, Wemby was in Toronto Monday. We talked about it ad nauseum on the show because he had 10 blocks.
Did you guys go?
Oh, we were there. We were there. We made sure to get courtside.
Courtside for warm-ups, not courtside.
I mean, come on, we're media. We never said courtside. This is not back in the day anymore. But, like, yeah, we were there, and it's obviously so impressive to see Wemby. And it's like he's going to be ready way faster than the rest of the Spurs roster is. And so you got to start thinking about who is that next piece that you pair him up with. There's maybe a couple pieces on the Spurs you could still use by the time he's ready to make the playoffs, which could honestly be next 2-3 years. But he's going to need that playmaker beside him. And Trae would be just an incredible dream option. So,
well, look, we constantly talk about the defensive deficiencies whenever Trae Young's name is mentioned. We don't give him enough credit for what an offensive maestro he is. He's averaging 27 and 11. He's a walking offense unto himself. And if any team, to me, if there are any 2 teams out there that would be able to bring in Trae Young and mitigate whatever defensive concerns there are, it's San Antonio with Wemby, who, as you guys have now just seen with your own eyes and who I will see tonight in Dallas.
Yeah.
I mean, the man, he is a one-man defense. He can cover the court and cover, space unlike any other big man in the league. And Anthony Davis is
arguably the best defender in the world right now.
Build a whole defense around him. So, both of those places make a lot of sense just from a basketball perspective if you're going to try to bring in Trae Young and, again, mitigate whatever concerns would be. I mean, those are 2 natural spots. And look, with San Antonio, when you talk to people around the league, there is a belief in certain corners of the league that Trae Young would be interested in landing with the Spurs if he were to leave the Hawks. I don't think the Hawks have firmly made that decision yet, but enough teams around the league believe it's going to be a serious conversation come off season.
Is it going to be awkward when the Spurs offer the DeJounte Murray package? They return it, but they get Trae Young.
I think it'll cost him probably a little more than that.
All right. Well, I mean, I think he's worth more than that. I think the Spurs, they should really look into it because, again, watching Wemby up close, it's like he's going to be ready in like a year, like in that level. Once the training wheels come off, which right now is he only plays like 20-some-odd minutes. Once he's able to play 30-some-odd minutes.
I still kind of think that's not training wheels. It's let's make sure we don't win too many games.
That's tanking wheels?
Yeah.
Right. Well.
The ankle weights instead
ankle
of training
weights.
wheels, I guess, is the better term for it.
You want to ask him about Bruce Brown?
Did his pregame warm-up live up to billing?
Oh, yeah.
Dallas?
Dude.
The first time he was here this season was the trip over the ball boy incident. So.
Right. Well, I was not prepared to see how good of a shooter he was already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one-footed, like taking floaters from 3-point range is ridiculous. Like the evolution of the Dirk fade. It's just like, no, I'm going to do this from the top of the 3-point arc. That was crazy. The fact that like he's stationary shooting from the elbow and is like level with the basket. It's I don't know. It was a lot. It was a ton of fun. Even in like the layup line when we're back in the media gondola at that point. Like some of the self alley-oops he tried to throw, like he's not doing the dunk contest, but there are things we were kicking around the idea of like, could he do the JaVale McGee 2 nets at once dunk, but like do something with both arms, like a double windmill or something like that seems possible based on his pregame warm-ups. It's amazing, Mark. I hope you have a blast tonight.
Yeah, it's never a bad show to get to watch him. Although, man, is he ever going to do a dunk contest? I'm not sure that is in the future. Who knows? Yeah.
All right. Well, we got to get you out on a question about Bruce Brown. I guess the Raptors couldn't get that first for Bruce Brown, but the Raptors will have another chance at the trade deadline, which I think Bobby described as almost like the second trade deadline in a way at the draft. So we'll see if we can get that first.
I got to be honest. When the rumble came out before the deadline that the Raptors have a first on the table for Bruce Brown,
I know you were surprised.
My suspicion was that they did not, and apparently they did not.
Yeah, well, that's fine. We can ask you about something else in the future. But Mark, we appreciate you taking the time as always.
You'll only have to wait till May, and then we can talk about Bruce Brown every Wednesday again.
I can't wait, man. Just everyone loves talking about Bruce Brown. It's the number one topic.
Yeah, the only thing I could talk about right now is like, okay, other than Luke Combs, what do you got in this country playlist? Because that's all I've heard out of the locker room after the one win, and then they went back to the losing side. So I don't know what else he's got in his country bag. Mark, have fun tonight, man. Thanks for joining us.
All right, guys, be good.
Okay. So, coming out of that, speaking of Bruce Brown, the Raptors play. Could we Bruce Brown return, I guess, like playing against his former team against Indiana?
Years of animosity after, the 8 seconds he spent as a Pacer.
Yeah.
Look, the Pacers did right by him. He looked around the league and saw that he could get 4-year full mid-level deals, and they were like, what if we give you all that money over 2 years, but we get a team option, so we're super flexible, we get to the salary floor, and you're this funky trade asset. Pretty good. Now, Bruce Brown has probably not played to the level of a 2-year, $45 million guy since then. But, they gave him that contract, and good for him.
Yeah.
But that is not where we're going next, Bruce Brown specific.
Okay.
We're going to the other side of this trade. We're going to Indiana. It's time now for the spicy stat of the day, brought to you by new Chunky Spicy Soup. Are you ready to get fired up? Are the Pacers ready to fire up the Halliburton-Siakam duo yet? We talked to Caitlin about it. I'm going to talk about it on the pregame broadcast tonight. The returns aren't that bad. The Pacers have played fine. Pascal's individual offense has been good. When they share the floor together, and it's only 198 minutes, but the Pacers win those minutes. The offense is good. Individually, Tyrese and Pascal both see their true shooting percentage go up. They're both good. Halliburton has only assisted Pascal in 9 games that they've played together, though, 14 times.
Wow.
Now, they don't play they don't play all the minutes together. So if you, as low as that sounds, if you extended it out over the entire season so far, they would be 16th as a duo, Halliburton to Siakam. That feels a little bit low, and certainly the number 14 seems very low. Pascal's also only assisted Halliburton 7 times so far. So they've connected on 21 baskets in 9 games. And like Caitlin explained, they're not doing a lot of the Tyrese Pascal or Pascal Tyrese pick and roll, whether 1-4 or 4-1, with some reasons, but they're going to need to learn to mine that eventually. And I really do think that what the Pacers saw here, yes, the Halliburton-Turner 2-man dynamic is their most fruitful, and Pascal's more about, forcing difficult decisions on the defense and taking advantage of mismatches that Halliburton and Turner create elsewhere and things like that. But I really do think they're going to have to get that number out. 14 times in 9 games, even acknowledging they don't play a ton of minutes together, that is going to have to come up, and that's probably the stat that I'm watching tonight. So there's your spicy stat of the day.
It's pretty spicy. It's probably medium spicy, just like the soup can I'm looking at
3 out of 5 on the old spice meter on the side.
Well, I think, it's kind of funny because we have a similar thing in Toronto where it's like, okay, we immediately thought Emmanuel Quickly and Scotty Barnes. That's like, it makes perfect sense. They're going to run 2-man action. They're going to do this and this. Their games overlap because of X, Y, and Z. And then you come here and you're like, actually, there isn't that many interactive elements right away, and it's going to take a more of a process. And that's where I think that it's good for both of these teams to get to the All-Star break, get in some extra practice time, settle in, and then sort of learn how to play off of each other. I think to the point about Pascal in particular, having watched him a lot in Toronto, especially because of the way that the roster was built with the Raptors and also under Nick Nurse, like there was so much like isolation, individual elements, and those were the parts of his game that he really grew and blossomed in. And so I've always wondered if you went to a different situation, how would that fit in with other pieces? Because Indiana also had their own system as well. Now, of course, offensively, it's going to work fine because guess what? Having two of a good thing is actually just more of a good thing. But I think defensively, that's where they got to figure it out as well. Because again, the Pacers just need to get to like even league average defensively to be a really good team.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, their defense is still not great. And offensively, yeah, you haven't seen like this like huge two-man combination where it's like immediately they combine all the time. And I think some of that, it requires growth on both parts. Tyrese has to get better, and also Pascal has to get out of that individual game and get more into that team game that he's probably going to need to pair with another guy.
Yeah. So to give you a context, a quickly RJ or a quickly Barnes context.
Yeah.
It's felt like they haven't assisted on each other a ton. It's been about once every 11 minutes that they share the court, and this is both ways, quickly to Barnes or Barnes to quickly. Once about every 11 minutes or so. With Pascal and Halliburton, it's about once every 9.5 minutes on the floor together.
Oh,
so they're not that far off. So if we're looking at quickly and Barnes and being like, I wish that was a little bit more. Yeah. Even though I said, if you extrapolate that over a whole season, they'd be a top 20, top 25 combination, whatever number I said. It's not that far off. It's not that far ahead of the quickly Barnes duo where we've been watching and being like, we need to see more. We need to see more.
Well, I think it's always tricky because both guys want to score.
Yeah.
In both pick and roll combinations, right? So like Tyrese wants to score off of those pick and rolls. Pascal wants to score in an advantageous situation off of those screens. And same thing with Quickly and Scotty. And so I think it's not as simple as like, okay, for example, Tyrese is going to run action with Miles Turner. Like, Turner knows he's going to get fed. So he's going to play off of the other person. Like, I think it requires a bit of a concession to be like, I'm going to play off of the other guy. I'm going to get the other guy a better look. And, of course, if they double, then I'm going to get a better look off of those passes. You got to trust. It's a whole process. But, it'll be fun to watch how the Pacers grow with that. Of course, if they continue to be under 500 with the two of them in the lineup together, then, it's also good for the Raptors pick. So
yeah, unless the Pacers win the lottery.
Yeah, that's not
because that thing's top 3 protected.
It's not gonna
anyway, that's certainly something to watch. Miami and Orlando only half a game back of Indiana to avoid the play, and so that's going to be a pretty tight race there. Assuming Philly doesn't.
So this is a must-win for the Raptors
away
tonight. We got to get this one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
For our pick, man, we need, this is what we're rooting for, our picks.
Yeah, but I guess the argument could be from someone who really doesn't want the pick to convey to San Antonio this year that it's more important to improve it's more important to hurt your own pick than to hurt Indy's pick. If you are of the mind that you really want to do, it's silly.
It is silly, but it does sound like a win-win in a weird way.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Either way, it's you got both sides at plus 110 or something like that in this one. You're not making much, but you're good either way.
Yeah, we're leaving here with something. It's just not a win. Okay, we're gonna take a break. Our last one. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to the Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. Welcome back to the Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, William Lou. Going to be joined by co-host Blake Murphy. Yeah, again, programming note, we will be off the Daily Show until next Thursday. So enjoy your All-Star weekend. Enjoy your time off. Blake Murphy, I will do the same and then get back at it soon enough. But, of course, another programming note, this is from the Raptors. Make sure you are in your seats before tip-off, okay? Please be in your seats before tip-off.
7:30 sharp. I know we're all accustomed to a 7:30 start time, meaning 7:37 or 7:41 or whatever.
No. 7:30 means 7:30.
Yeah, I got the TV tonight, so I get the email where it actually reveals the tip time, and I always want to tweet it, be like, hey, the actual tip time is this. But then people aren't on their seats anyway. So get to your seats for 7:30 because I believe there's a Pascal thing and a Scotty Barnes thing.
Yeah. So, I don't know. This is not entirely like people dawdling or whatever. Like it's hectic. If you've ever come to the game right for the tip off, this long lineup. If you bring a bag, all that kind of stuff. You might want to use the washroom, and it's a long line. All that kind of stuff. You want to get some food. Just if at all possible, please be in your seats because you just want to show out for Pascal, who has come back to Toronto after getting dealt last month, and Pascal was able to catch up with local reporters here at Shoot Around this morning. So we have a couple of clips for you from Pascal. The first one is just how it's going to feel playing against the Raptors for the first time in his career.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I think I was coming in and I have to go to the little stairs on the other side. I mean, I've never even been to that part of the building. I think like maybe during the playoffs, I went to that side like because I think the interviews was like over there or something, the podium. So like there's places where I've probably never been. So it's just kind of weird, to be honest. But just seeing the building, obviously like a lot of memories here. Like you definitely like you feel comfortable. Like I mean I know I have a different jersey on, but just coming into this building is again it just brings back a lot of good things.
Have you thought about what tonight might be like with the tribute and the fans and familiar faces?
I try not to think about it. I just want to like go out there and just like kind of like deal with it as it comes, and not trying to anticipate so much. But obviously like you go to a place where you're going to see a lot of familiar faces, like people that I've seen for the past 8 years of my life. Like I mean like these people are kind of like being part of my life, So I think just seeing everyone just going to be exciting. I'm sure like seeing some of the fans, like there's certain faces that I've seen every game, you know what I mean? So like seeing those faces even, like I think it just gives you like that little kind of like peace feeling of just like, yeah, like I know what this feels like, so yeah.
Yeah, so my question to you, Blake, is have you also gotten lost in Scotiabank Arena?
No. I think
okay.
I'm
certainly
pretty
gotten lost in there
good.
many times, man.
It's been a long, I mean, maybe back in the day, but it's been like
It's
a
home for
decade
you.
of going there now. And like I first started having, I mean, part-time credentials even before this, but full-time credential, I think 2015 was the first year. 2015-16 was the first time that I had like, I don't know, I think I was credentialed for like 12 or 15 games that year or something like that. And then the whole playoff run.
Right.
So that's a long time to be going to 40 plus games a year. And like in the 2016 playoff run, I would be so anxious before some of those games that like between shoot around in the game, I wouldn't know what to do. So I would just like hang out at the arena working.
You post up the whole time?
Not the whole time, because like media relations are not going to be thrilled with when I'm on my 7th cup of the giant vat of coffee. And also like they need a break in the middle of the day, so they don't want media there. But
Right.
like, yeah, I spent enough time there. Like,
Got you.
I'm gonna go sit in this area and chill, or I'm gonna write over here, or I'm gonna just put the headphones. I honestly was talking to someone about this the other day. I sent someone a photo because I was at the arena early. There was no walkthrough pregame, so I went right from our show, and the arena's empty. Right, like the game ops
cool
and stuff. They start replay. They start like rehearsing and everything, and the game ops are blaring from like 5 o'clock on. But if you beat 5 o'clock, there's a period there where the whole thing is empty.
Yeah.
And you might get a shoe squeak or an odd dribble from like one of the like arena support crew, just like getting a couple shots up or dribbling or whatever. But it is quiet and it is so empty in there where like, man, if I was Pascal and I came back, like I feel like I would want to come do my warm up first in that empty environment, and like and maybe even like if I was Kelly and I came back, I feel like I would want to do that. And like, hey, I'm playing for my home team now. I want to play in this empty arena and feel that. So I haven't gotten lost there, but I've gotten lost there, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next Siakam clip.
Wait, have you gotten lost there?
Plenty of times, man. Yeah, all the time, honestly.
Alex telling you to go get Alouette or whatever, and you're like, where? I can't find it. It's not on the concourse. I
know where it is, but I know where it is now. Yeah. Anyway,
shout out to Alex, by the way. Great piece on Pascal's content creators.
Yeah, shouts to Dew and Lindsay or shouts to Dew and Charlie at Tier Zero. Just they've consistently made really good content for Pascal, and I'm sure I'll see them tonight. Give them a couple daps, but also, yeah, I missed the Pascal content, man. He really had a really good content creation team behind him, and credit Tier Zero for that. But anyway, we are going to go to the second Pascal Siakam clip. This one talking about just the relationship with Masai, and if things could have been handled better on the way out.
I mean, to be like, yeah, like I don't look back, to be honest. Like at the end of the day, like it is what it is, man. Like like obviously I think, and I expressed it like 1,000 times, it's just like, this is home for me. So I've always wanted to be here and be a part of this. But at the end of the day, like I also understand like what it is. Like I'm not, and one of the things I always say is like, I grew up here as a kid, I came in as a young guy. I was just like, man, like I'm so excited. Like, everything was great, amazing, and I was learning and obviously like Masai has been always a mentor, someone that I look to, but it's like at a certain point it's like, I'm growing. Like I'm a man at the end of the day, like and to me it's just like that communication and just like, hey man, like I understand it. Like I mean, to be honest, I don't like I get it. I understand the business, I've been around, so like I've seen things happen. So it's moving on from it, man, like I'm in a situation, like I said, where like it just feels amazing, and I think that at this point it's just like, yeah, like I kind of like moved on from it, like, so I'm just not, I'm not really like reflecting on that, to be honest. Like that's the first time I thought about that question. So yeah, it is what it is, like, and I wish, obviously, like, well, like I talked to Scotty, like I mean, I wish everyone well, like I want them to succeed, and for me, I just want to continue my journey also. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the communication piece was something we talked about a lot. And, of course, we had Pascal's agents on, both Todd and Jafar, after the trade deadline. And I think I asked the same question to both of them about communication. Now, of course, they both said it was fine. But I think truthfully, at certain moments, it wasn't fine. You know what I mean? And I think for Pascal, one of the most informative experiences coming up was, again, DeMar was one of his vets, Kyle and DeMar. And he was there in Vegas in that year. And of course, there was the rumors at that time, will the Raptors trade DeMar for Kawhi? And of course, communication could have been a lot better there. I think that led to a lot of the disappointment that DeMar had. Of course, DeMar also wanted to stay in Toronto. He was kind of like the Pascal before Pascal, if we really think about it. But he went through that situation. He saw sort of what happened with DeMar, and he just didn't want a repeat of that. And of course, you factor the Summer League last year, and kind of the same conversations. Okay, the Raptors might trade Pascal. Well, it's like, if you want to do that, fine. There's just got to be open lines of communication to be clear about what's going to happen. And I just don't think that communication that I think was guaranteed to be there was actually followed through to be there. But a lot of that is water on the bridge now at this point. He ended up in a situation in Indiana where it seems like he's happy. He's going to get paid. He's going to, he's in a good situation. It's on a good team. It's not like he got traded to San Antonio or something.
And even then, I mean, him and Wemby would be a cool pair.
Well, yeah, I mean, San Antonio now seems to really popping, but still, it's just water under the bridge. I mean, it's part of the business. I mean, I'm sure those are the things where when Masai looks back at it, he's going to be like, I really enjoyed so many parts of this job, but the parts that you won't enjoy is the fact that sometimes you have to really keep people in the dark when it comes to these big transactions.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, the answer is communicate better, and if it leaks and you have to deal with that, then it leaks and you have to deal with that. But generally, how to handle, you're considering trading a player, but you're not sure about it. Like, that was the DeMar thing, is like, allegedly, at the time that they told DeMar, we're not trading you, they thought the chances of a Kawhi trade were like 5%. So why stress the relationship? Why stress him out about a potential trade if you thought it was so unlikely, and then it became likely?
Yeah.
So I don't know how you balance that, but I think as a default, communicate better. And if there are consequences to communicating better and treating people, it's been interesting to listen to Masai talk about it after, because like, at other points, like with Kyle, with Fred and things like that, they've really hammered home, well, we want to do right by the player. We want to make, and for whatever reason, it wasn't there this time. So there's an inconsistency there, but Masai obviously felt a certain way. But I don't know. It's nice to hear that Pascal's in a good place with it. And I'm sure some of the good place that he's in with it has to do with what his next contract will probably look like in Indiana. So that's good too. Get yours.
Fair enough. Okay, and then the last clip we want to share from Pascal at Shoot Around. Just Pascal was asked about Scotty Barnes, who is now making a similar transition to becoming the guy. I mean, this happened with Pascal after Kawhi left. It wasn't like, okay, the Raptors wanted to make Pascal the guy, but Kawhi left, and you had to make somebody the guy. In that sense, sometimes when you are made the guy, it's not necessarily at your entire choice and your entire timeline of disposable. But as the guy who most recently went through a similar experience, Pascal had a lot of really warm-hearted things to say to Scotty on that front.
It is tough. I, as a young man coming in, like, it's going to be a lot of ups and downs. There's going to be, there's going to be things that's not going to look so good, and there's going to be days where it's going to be amazing. It's going to be great. Like, I think that, he's just got to be like able to kind of like take those kind of waves, and as he continues to just like, learn from it, he's going to grow. Like, he's going to get better at it. And as long as his head is in the right place, like, I think he's going to be fine. But it comes with that, like, it's going to be a lot of, just got to be ready. Like, that's the conversation you have with him. It's just like, just know that it's coming. So just brace yourself, keep the main thing, and just keep moving forward. Like, if you do the right things, like, things going to turn around. So I think he's in a good place. He's going to be all right.
Yeah. What'd you think of that?
Yeah, nice to hear that Pascal reached out and talked to him. I wonder, what those conversations will be like today if there are those conversations. It's always then on the young player to hear those conversations as well and take that to heart. But I think, within that, Pascal's confidence level in Scotty, that Scotty's going to be okay, having got to know him over 2.5 years, having gone through his own growth in the leadership role with some of the same bumps. I think that's helpful to remember that, yeah, Pascal went through this and Pascal's vets went through this as well.
Yeah, and I think what the nice thing with Pascal is that he had a lot of that journey with Kyle Lowry. There was a lot of transition with him, right? Because even the year after Kawhi left, he still had a lot of the guys around him: Serge, Mark, Kyle, older guys. Guys he came up with, Fred. You know what I mean? He didn't feel so much alone. Even that year when he was the guy, a lot of games there was Kyle was the guy that game, or Serge led the team in scoring a lot of times. Of course, Pascal was the leading scorer, but then of course I think he also went through something so unique: the bubble, COVID, his particular situation with that, which it was so ugly how it all played out, and it was really, really disappointing. And then the year after they had to go to Tampa, so it was very unique in a lot of different circumstances. But ultimately, there is a really big burden that comes with being the guy. Heavy is the head that wears the crown kind of thing, and I think he can relate probably better than anyone to Scotty in this current situation. And I think Pascal got through that, and Pascal grew as a person through that. He grew and matured so much as a person through that too. And I think, for Scotty, it's going to be a similar thing where, if you, like Pascal said, keep basketball the main thing, and by all accounts, that is exactly what Scotty has done, then you will get through this period, but there will not come without a lot of growth. The thing that's difficult for me is he doesn't have the same guys he came up with. You know what I mean? There's not a Fred beside him, not OG beside him. There's not
nobody. You have to hope Emmanuel and RJ become those guys.
But those were imported.
I know, but they're here now, and I'm saying you hope that they become that, because nobody came in with them, and even if they did, they didn't come in with them as a number 4 pick. Yeah. Whereas Pascal and Fred were kind of the same part of that, grind and go down to the 905 and things like that. Okay, so I saw people with the Fred tribute feel like it was. I thought it was well enough done. You're working.
It was good.
Yeah, you're working within time constraints there. You're not going to do the Kawhi level dot across the thing. You probably only got a minute there. Given the constraints of a minute, what do you want to make the Pascal tribute video? What are the big moments for you?
Wow, honestly, the moments from the finals, game 1 against, 14 of 17, 32 points, I think, against the Warriors to win game 1 was incredible. You got to put in the final basket to clinch for the title run, right? Game 6, they come out of the timeout. The Raptors are up by 1. They got 30-some-odd seconds. Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam pick and roll. Kyle feeds Pascal, slipping to the basket, and Pascal with the little tuck, Euro step, and then floater over top of Draymond. That's the last bucket of that entire title run, and it's such a clinching moment. And I know we don't think about it in the same way that you think about the Kawhi shot, but dude, we're talking about the very last basket in a 1-point game. That made it a 3-point game in a very, very key moment. That's got to be in it. Him getting named to All-Star, the 52 in the Garden has to be in it. Him in the D-League, winning that championship has to be in it. Him telling Bruno to shape up in nice
No,
words.
that's an off-air story. That's an off-air story.
That's different.
That's all right. Not PG.
Don't worry, it's fine. And then there's all sorts of stuff, man. His charitable foundations has to be in it. All the work that he's done with the PS Foundation, 43 Foundation, which continues to operate out of Toronto, and they're going to have more initiatives here.
All right, so tip-off's at 9:15 p.m. Because you got a long video here, man.
I would fully watch a 15-minute Pascal documentary before the game, man.
Absolutely. He put a 9-minute one on his vlog the other day about getting traded.
That's a Tier Zero, man. They make great content.
I think you mentioned it, but the one part of that I would like to put more emphasis on is and this is probably just because I was there, but the All-Star announcement at the NBA store in New York City where his brother surprises him and everything.
That's awesome.
And he's there when he gets announced as a starter, and obviously other people knew, but he maybe didn't know or whatever. And if he did know, he acted very well. It was cool. And then
the game winner against Mikal Bridges and the Suns, that should be in there.
Yeah, the one that kind of sparked the conversation. I was going back over old Pascal articles today, as I know you were as well, and you tweeted one out. And there was one that I talked to him about in January 2019. And it was kind of trying to get into, how he thinks his story and his emergence and stuff. And this is pre-All-Star is about more than just him. And it's about what Masai wants to do for Africa, I can do as a player and being a leading example and stuff like that. And I built the whole starting of it around that shot, and Pascal kind of being and getting into this idea that we've talked about like the player development philosophy at a certain point with Pascal becoming, well, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Why not that? Why not more?
Yeah.
Why put a limitation on this player type or a player from this region or someone who came through this college system or whatever? Like, why not? Why can't he have the ball in his hands for the final possession of a game?
Right.
So yeah, it's that's a cool one to look back on.
Pascal
There was
on the
also
side bringing the Larry O'Brien to Cameroon was also really cool.
Yeah, that's a huge one. I mean, this is a weird one, but a really big Pascal, and I guess like good games or good quarters are harder to fit into things like this. But he set the franchise record with 25 points in a quarter in San Antonio. Like when
the circumstances was really awkward for
like
that
Kobe
one.
had
Kobe
passed
just
away,
passed,
and like guys are crying on the court, and
Pascal
Pascal
making the video, man. Come on. It's too much of a bummer.
Yeah, it's just like nobody would know the context necessarily. They might just hear like 25 and a quarter. But like Fred's video had like all his records.
Sure.
Pascal's got a lot of like top fives and stuff. I think that's the only like record he holds.
Yeah. I think 14 of 17 and also the game clinching basket in the finals.
You think that's a better clip than Marcus crying on the court and Pascal scoring?
Yeah.
Something's wrong with me. That stands out to me, man. Well, because like it is a Raptors record that he holds, and it stood out to me because like obviously you can respond to those things in different ways, and some guys didn't want to play, some guys, I don't know. There were just different responses, and I thought it was cool that Pascal's was like
I'm a cook.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the last thing too is just like real quickly, just about. I think there is still that lingering question for some people of like, could this have gone on, right? Because you see the perspective he was able to offer for Scotty there, and it's like, well, Pascal didn't actually want to leave. You could have potentially chosen to keep him. Now, whatever, the trade package is what it is, and again, it's really going to determine based on what they can get for Bruce Brown eventually, and also what those picks turn into. And if the Raptors wanted to pivot, it was a good time to pivot, or not a good time, but it was the last opportunity to pivot before you ultimately were, going to free agency, but. I think there was that idea of like maybe you extend him and you keep him. I think honestly, having looked into this thing, it's like it was a matter of years. Really, it wasn't about necessarily a matter of how much money. Yeah, and I think that ultimately, the Raptors kind of held firm on just like something shorter than what Pascal wanted, and eventually also the way the season went out because it started slowly. I don't even know if that specific offer was always on the table, but in any case, you could talk to different people about this. It'll come back and forth. It's all water on the bridge now, and he's in Indiana, and the Raptors move on with Bruce Brown and some picks.
Time now for Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Take a chance. So we'll see how Pascal Siakam does tonight. The Raptors are 3.5-point underdogs. The over/under is 245 because it's a Pacers-Raptors game. But notable, Tyrese Halliburton with his hamstring is questionable. Miles Turner and Benedict Mathurin are both sick, so they are questionable.
Oh, wow.
And then Jalen Smith and old friend James Johnson are both out. On the Raptors side, RJ is questionable due to a personal matter, and Jonte Porter sprained his ankle pretty badly last night. He's listed as doubtful, not out, but it did not look very nice last night. So I would not anticipate having Jonte Porter tonight. So how are you feeling?
Wow. I mean, if some of those guys aren't playing, then I kind of... I kind of like the Raptors, man. I always like the Raptors.
If three Pacers starters aren't playing, you like the Raptors? Cool. Or not?
God.
2 starters and a key bench guy.
I swear, if it was just between the lines, the Raptors record would be like they'd be like a 72-win Warriors or the 73-win Warriors. Look, the main matchup is going to be Scotty versus Pascal.
Yeah,
and I think that's going to be really fun. I want to see those two guys guard each other. I think for Scotty, there might be not even a redemption game, just like a bounce back game. Like redemption is way too dramatic. Yeah. A bounce back game because the last game against Indiana or against San Antonio we covered it was a little disappointing. But yeah, I mean you got a chance to play against them. I think for the Raptors, obviously you got to watch out for Pascal's spin move. You got to make sure you protect the basket. I think Scotty knows that. And I think that that'll be a fascinating matchup. As for what the rest of the lineup's going to look like matchup wise, I mean Indiana's still going to push the pace even if Halliburton ultimately doesn't play. I think Halliburton probably will play though because isn't the All-Star game around the corner? So
yeah, but the argument could be to rest him to make sure he plays in the All-Star game and doesn't tweak it. I don't know. He's questionable.
Resting a regular season game to play in the All-Star game. That's Well, what happened to the game I love?
Yeah.
My God.
The other interesting thing is obviously Halliburton's got to guard someone. Are they where are they hiding him? Is Nembhard guarding Quickly, even though Quickly's probably on Halliburton? It'll be interesting to see. That was Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. take a chance. Will, we don't have time to do a full All-Star Weekend preview, but who is winning the dunk contest or the three-point contest? You can have your pick.
I am going to pick Mac McClung to win the dunk contest again.
All right.
Yeah. What about you?
Unfortunately, I think Jaylen Brown is going to win it because it's the most annoying outcome.
What do you think he's going to do? Do you remember that many
dribble with
Jaylen
his
Brown
left hands?
Is he going to dip the arm into the rim kind of thing?
I don't know.
I think that'd be kind of cool. That's my favorite dunk. When you dip the arm into the rim. Anyway, that does it for us today. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. It's time to get fired up. Make sure you find The Raptor Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. And please rate and review the show. Big thanks to our guests today, Caitlin Cooper, Jason Kapono, Marc Stein. And we will see you next week.